Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Roadmap, a clear direction advisors podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Vise, business strategist for service-based business owners who are ready to stop running their business on instinct and ready to start building it with intention. Every episode, we get into the practical side of growing and scaling a service business, the strategy, financial clarity, offers, team, and systems that it actually takes to build something sustainable. Now let's get into it. How many of you have had a really good revenue month? But then you look at your bank account a couple weeks later and you wonder where it all went. If that's you, you are not bad at business, but you are running without a plan. And there is a major difference. And that's what this episode is all about. Now, service providers, right, take on clients, deliver the work, their revenue grows, but there's no actual strategic framework behind it. And they think because they're busy, they're being strategic. But that's just not the case, right? Every decision that you're making is made retroactively, right? It's your pricing, the hiring, the offers that you have, the time that you're spending on things. It's all response to outside pressure, not by something that you have designed. So from the outside, the business looks successful, but the inside, it's very, very chaotic, right? Now, an example of this is a trades company that I knew, right? From the outside looking into this company, you would think that they were very successful. They had multiple vehicles on the road and they were all brand new vehicles, right? They kept hiring new team members because they had the vehicles, they had to have staff to do the jobs. They were always having jobs coming in and they were constantly busy because you constantly saw their vehicles on the road running from this job to that job. But if you looked on the inside of that business, there was no plan and it was incredibly chaotic. They had no control over their cash flow, right? 85% of their jobs were connected to one very large client, and that client dictated the payment terms. And those terms were really long, and there was really no guarantee that they were actually going to pay on time, right? A lot of times they paid late because, oh, that didn't fit in with our payment schedule, right? They didn't do any marketing beyond the fleet. So they had their fleet of vehicles, but there really wasn't any marketing on those vehicles, nor did they go out and try and connect with other clients outside of this one big one, right? The back end itself was a complete and utter mess, right? They were always trying to figure out how they were going to make payroll, how they were going to make their vehicle payments because their cash flow just wasn't consistent, right? And because of the demands from that one client, they didn't have a system in place to grow outside of that work, right? And then when clients outside of that large client tried to get them to do some work, it was one of two things. One, they had to turn the work away because they were too busy, or two, the back office just was too busy to actually engage with them, so the clients were lost. Now, they could have turned this around, right? If they had actually started with a plan, if they had had a strategy in place, it would have meant slower growth, right? It would have meant trying to go find more clients outside of the large one, would have meant not having brand new vehicles, would have meant not having as big of a team, therefore slower growth. But they could have done it in such a way that they would still be around. Unfortunately, this business had to close down, right? And sometimes it's even as simple as buying an older, really, in great shape vehicle that doesn't cost as much as brand new, right? And going out and getting out into the communities around you to meet with ideal clients, having a system in place to follow up with inquiries so jobs and people don't fall through the cracks. Now, if I asked you right now to describe your business strategy in 3 sentences, could you do it? I'm not talking about your services. I'm not talking about your goals. I'm talking about your strategy. How you are going to get from where you are at right now to where you want to be, and why that approach makes sense for your specific business. The honest answer is most people can't. But that's the point, right? That's what we're talking about here. When you have a plan, you know specific to your business how to get from where you're at now to exactly where you want to be, right? Now, that where you're at right now requires a really honest, deep dive into the current reality of your business. It means looking at your revenue, your capacity, your offers, your team, financial health. It means that you're actually taking a look at what's happening and not just what you want to have happening, but what's really happening. And this can be difficult for a lot of people. Your business is something that you have built from the ground up. So you want to have the best view of it, but that best view might not be a true view. And without a true view, you're not working from your current reality. You're working from a hopeful reality, right? One that isn't even real. You also, right, need to know where you're going, and that's where your goals come into play. So you do need specific goals, right? With a time frame, with um, acknowledging that, right, what it is specifically what you want to accomplish. A goal is not, I want to grow, I want to scale, right? It's knowing what does that growth mean in numbers, right? What does it mean in revenue? What does it mean in net income? What does it mean in capacity? What does it mean in team members? What does it mean in system, right? But it also means looking at what does it mean for you in terms of your lifestyle and your team's lifestyle? What does it mean for the kind of work that you're actually going to be doing? And I'm not just talking client work, I'm talking about the back end work. And that can be you or your team, right? What does that look like? The third step of that plan is how are you going to get there? So that means understanding the decisions that you have to make, the priorities, because not everything can be taken care of at once. You sometimes have to do things in steps. So what is the most important thing that you need to focus on to get from where you're at now to where you want to be, right? Priorities. And then, of course, that sequence of actions that actually connect from your current reality to where you want to go. All of those details, that's your actual strategy. Everything else is just you hoping that you can get there. Now, I want to tell you about another tradesperson that I know, and they're actually still in business, right? They started off with a plan on how to connect with their clients, how to schedule their work. When they needed a vehicle, right? They didn't go out and buy brand new vehicle. They purchased an older vehicle in great shape, right? They made sure that every single inquiry was responded to in a timely manner. They, if they couldn't take a job, they made sure that the client still felt that they were heard, and that, right, if they had to wait, that was okay. They didn't keep every client who inquired, of course, because some had a timeline that didn't work, but they still listened to those inquiries, right, and got back to them. They also always understood the terms, both with the clients and the suppliers, and they never relied on that one major client for a majority of their business, right? They did go out and market themselves. They connected with their ideal clients, and sometimes in ways that you may not have thought about, but they connected. They also know their cash flow, right? So this is a business that started with a plan, stuck with the plan, reviewed the plan, and they are still in business, unlike the first business that I spoke about, because they know how they're getting clients. They know how they're connecting with their new clients. They know where their money is coming from and where the money needs to be going. They have a system for, right, those inquiries. They have a system to schedule out the work, and they don't have overlap because their back office is in place and it is running smoothly, right? They also do job check-ins with the team and with the clients, and they do customer client or client satisfaction surveys. Now, that's what I've seen over nearly 30 years of working with business owners. The ones who resist strategic planning are almost always the ones who are most afraid of what the plan will reveal. Because having a plan makes the gaps in your business visible, and visible gaps require decisions. But here's the thing. Those gaps exist whether you look at them or not. Your strategic plan just gives you the chance to do something about them before they become crises. Now, having a business without a plan isn't just inefficient and chaotic, it's expensive because you're having to throw money at things where you're not really sure if that's going to work or not, right? And every decision that you're making without a strategic framework behind it is costing you something. It's costing you money or time or energy or opportunities, right? And building your strategic plan is actually simpler than what most people think. And that's what the next few episodes are going to help you with. Now, that's it for today's episode of the Entrepreneur's Roadmap. If what we talked about today is something that you want to think through further, the best place that you can do that is my weekly newsletter. Every week, I write about the practical side of building a service business that actually pays you well, the strategy, the offers, the financials, the systems, your team, the stuff that most business content just skips over. You can sign up at cleardirectionadvisors.com. I've put the link in the show notes. And if this episode really did land with you, the next best step that you can do after following and subscribing, right? So you never ever miss an episode, is grab my free guide, 5 Key Strategies to Scale Your Service-Based Business. This is the foundation that we're going to keep building on, right? And you'll find the link in the show notes and at cleardirectionadvisors.com. Now, until next time, see you on the road.